Yo guys, welcome to my channel. This story about what Naruto has the six eyes from Satoru Gojo. Chapter 2. Let's start, guys.
Naruto was not particularly happy with his sensei. The man had carried him along to the Hokage's office, but apparently forgot, or didn't care, that it was currently occupied. All the other new Jonin sensei who were lined up in front of the Hokage's desk busy giving the final results and assessments of their new genin teams. Only to then be interrupted by Kakashi arriving late and for some reason with one of said genins in tow. It was no wonder they were all looking at him like that, although maybe they didn't. Him either. His opening line might not have helped his case much there. He looked up into the eyes of a red-eyed woman, the one currently giving the report they had so rudely interrupted, given by her position a step forwards out of line toward Hokage. She was looking back at them clearly annoyed, and his presence didn't seem to help. Though when she looked to him specifically and she caught his line of sight, woman appeared to flinch very subtly, almost imperceivable, but she done so nevertheless. Not caring for her apparent issues meeting his eyes, Naruto instead studied the woman's chakra, and determined she was weak. At least in most areas anyway. He could size of her chakra, like a shroud surrounding her body, the size and opacity directly related to the chakra's amount and density. The larger the shroud, the larger the kapak. And the higher the opacity, the denser the chakra. This woman's shroud was comparatively small for a Jonin. It was undeniably unimpressive, and it was still comfortably through, meaning it was not very dense. However, there was one specific aspect that seemed impressive when Naruto looked a little deeper than the surface. The makeup of her chakra was highly imbalanced, drastically favoring the yin side of things, and leaving the yang in the dust. Chakra consisted of two separate but equal energies. Yin and yang, the spiritual and physical. Chakra was trained through meditation and improving one's mind and feelings. Yang chakra was trained through physical activity, improving the body's strength and stamina. Together both spiritual and physical energies formed chakra. Her chakra was suited to the more spiritual side of techniques. She was likely smart and introspective. She was clearly a genjutsu user, people who were ninjutsu specialist. Vastly denser chakra as well as favoring yang as it provided the power. Kakashi was like that. He had a large shroud which was hard to see through, proving its density, and chakra flowed in abundance within his system. Though his transplanted eye actually added to the yin in his chakra, meaning it was still at impressive levels. This was all irrelevant to current events though, not that it actually mattered. All those deductions and thoughts occurred in how Naruto perceived time. For him the minute detailed breakdown only occurred within a second to the outside world. Such was the power of the six eyes. He didn't slow time per se, only he was able to think, perceive, deduce and consciously exist so much faster than everyone else. The six eyes were surely his greatest gift. The Mukagen was an incredible ability. Being able to manipulate space in many different ways, it opened up endless possibilities. Offense and defense, but it could only reach its full potential when partnered with the eyes to support it. The six eyes granted Naruto with vast perception and immense processing power, allowing them to precisely manipulate the sophisticated powers of the limitless down to an atomic level. Each of the limitless techniques requires this complex chakra manipulation, making the pairing of the six eyes crucial to utilizing the limitless to its maximum potential. Though Naruto tried hard not to over-rely on them, he found that the more he burdened them the quicker he tired. The six eyes manage and utilize chakra extremely to the extent that when Naruto uses a chakra technique the expenditure is so close to zero it's practically impossible to ever truly reach chakra exhaustion. But the eyes themselves use chakra to do so, meaning the more he relies on them to manage his chakra and help control and utilize his limitless techniques properly, the more strain on them and himself. His greatest gift burdened him with his only true weakness. In truth, the only weakness of the six eyes is their immense power. They perceive so much in such extremely detail that it can become too much to focus on, eventually all likely have to cover them to limit the information they process. Though I need them to use the basic limitals techniques currently. As I improve, I'll be able to use those without assistance, then only the advanced techniques will require them to be uncovered, assuming I ever learn them anyway. For Kurenai, the second she made eye contact with the boy at Kakashi's side, she became entranced by the beauty of his eyes. She couldn't look away, but rather quickly changed. Nothing physically changed in their appearance, but the feeling was so different. Rather than entrapped by beauty, she was now horrified by their aura. She felt was falling into them, being pulled into a never-ending spiraled abyss. She was scared, actually frightened at these eyes which felt like they were hovering over her shoulder, watching everything and digging deep into her body. They were shaking her to her core, but thankfully the seemingly never-ending second was over when he looked away. Towards the Hokage behind her. She was breathing heavy and actually sweating. He had done nothing but glance at her for a second, and this is what she was reduced to. Horrible experience that was. What a demon. She hated that thought, but honestly, she now truly understood why people thought those eyes had such horrific origins. Naruto completely ignored the Jonin, who was apparently having something of a panic attack. Perhaps I'm actually quite ugly, to inspire such a reaction from a beautiful woman. Naruto smiled at the ludicrous thought. He briefly looked to the Hokage. The old man was ridiculous. Never before had Naruto seen such chakra, in both size and density. He was unmatched. And yet there was still so much potential to be explored, so much these people just couldn't see or feel, sitting beyond their grasp, leaving the stage forever out of their reach. The man seemed worried for his Jonin and gave him a speculative look before returning his attention to Kakashi, who was only looking more uncomfortable now than he had been. Serves him right, stupid eye patch. Though that might not be a terrible idea, my headband would help block the overstimulation. Oh well, it's not necessary now, but for the future. Naruto considered the idea to lighten the burden he felt, but dropped it for now, instead focusing on how Kakashi was going to handle this. The man likely hadn't considered this idea much beyond bringing him here. Naruto smirked at his sensei. He would enjoy watching along as Kakashi attempted to resolve tea. Would likely go up in flames, and Naruto would be there to laugh at the man when it did. Not out of malice, of course, that would be cruel. Simply out of joy at seeing Kakashi mess up so badly. Well, not totally out of malice, at least, just a little bit. Well, Kakashi, what has happened for such an unprecedented situation to occur at this report? I'm sure you were aware of the time frame for this, yes? Naruto heard Hokage ask. Surely something so important should be given center stage. Come, make your report, my boy. Kakashi already hated this job, and Naruto not so discreetly laughing at him wasn't helping things. The blonde looked like he wanted to point and make fun of him, but was admirably holding back. Stupid kid, he's just mad I threw him earlier. Kakashi cleared his throat to ease himself into the uncomfortable situation. Hokage-sama, I have completed my test. The continuation of Team 7 consisting of Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura. I administered the Bell test and after its conclusion have chosen to pass the. Yes, you mentioned that. I'm thrilled you found a group who were able to prove themselves to you. I'm sure you'll make a fine teacher, my boy. Hiruzen replied. Appreciate the official report and confirmation of the team's pass, but hoping to lead Kakashi onto the bigger topic. Thank you, Sandaime-sama. The reason for the rather unusual company for my report is due to some new information coming to light regarding his unique abilities. Though you would like to know and assumed it was best to allow him to explain it himself so as to avoid misrepresenting some aspect of it. But perhaps it was a bad time. Kaka's all honesty had forgot what time the others would have finished. He hadn't meant to have so many eyes on Naruto, a poor mistake that could lead to distrust. Perhaps the thought he was trying to pressure him into revealing all his secrets and brought him into a room of Jonin and the Hokage to force his hand. He'd need to talk with him late. For now he could help allow the blonde to escape with his cards still by his chest. I apologize, Sandaime-sama. Please forgive Naruto's intrusion and consider it my own. It was a lapse of judgment. Please allow him to return home. We have an early STA tomorrow. He hoped he hadn't accidentally made the old man curious. He seriously hadn't thought this through. Hiruzen looked at Kakashi for a few moments before taking a draw of his pipe and agreeing to the request. But before Naruto could fully leave, he spoke up to him. Naruto. Boy, I'm glad you're opening up with your team. It is vital they understand your skills and move set. You don't need to tell them how to perform any techniques, but it's ALS. Good to hide them from your team. It will only cause problems and indecision when you are forced to either reveal something or suffer the consequences. Indecision, even. Second can kill, maybe not you but a teammate. Hiruzen spoke, having deduced the reason for Kakashi's 180, from hoping to have Naruto explain whatever ability he show, to trying to smuggle him out without needing to. He understood Naruto's reservations about discussing his abilities. Naruto had made them painfully clear with his first words in the room. He hadn't forgotten the event's foe. The initial reveal of his eyes, the votes to kill him, as he put it. But he needed the boy to understand that refusing to use those abilities in fear or suspicion of everyone w only cause problems. I will not force you to reveal your powers to me, child, but you should not hesitate to use them to their fullest in the protection of your team and mission. With his peace, Hokage allowed Naruto to leave, turning to face Kakashi a few seconds after the door closed. That was indeed a lapse in judgment, Kakashi. I understand your wish to open him up, especially if he showed something new, which I assume he did. But he is not trust my position and those close to me. And unfortunately, your unforeseen punctuality coincidentally coincided with our scheduled report. Usually you're booked in 3 hours later. Your peers. Apologies, Hokage-sama. I got ahead of myself. It's just he may be far more talented than we had previously estimated. The Jonin was thankful that went smoothly. Make the standard report without worrying about prying ears and eyes. Indeed. While on the subject of his talent, are you okay, Kurenai dear? You seemed a little faint for a second there. Hiruzen was intrigued as to what happened. He thought it to be a genjutsu effect, but there had been no chakra used in that moment. It appears she had just experienced a panic attack. Kurenai looked down, ashamed of her actions in front of her leader. To think he trusted me with leading a team of graduates and I can't even hold eye contact with a boy. Thought bitterly. She had never considered herself to be weak-willed. She proudly accepted her reputation as being cold, brought about by her policy on men attempting to her. She was proud to think herself someone who did the title of kunoichi proud and reversed the stereotypes that they were not as capable as male shinobi. The very Senju Tsunade had proven her naysayers wrong during the Second Great War. But apparently, she had become arrogant or too comfortable in that belief. Straightening herself, she responded, I'm fine, thank you, Hokage-sama. It's just the first time I've truly seen his eyes. They were more intense than I was expecting. Me, it won't happen again. She had previously believed a rumor that the boy had been faking them, that he was just seeking attention. Truly, how far she had fallen, to rumors spread by biased civilians to impact on her perception of a subject. Hiruzen continued, looking to her for a moment before smiling and accepting the answer with a nod. Yes, they can be quite uncomfortable indeed, I've even experienced it myself. Certainly. Would either be their first mission, or a training session revolving around opera within a group. Deciding to just take a wander around the village until he found something to do, he set off in no particular direction. Though he didn't have to wait long before he ran into familiar faces. Some of the students from his class appeared to be heading into a beef barbecue restaurant. If he remembered correctly, they were Team 10, whose Jonin S. He must have just met. Meeting Shikamaru and Choji at the door, he asked to join them briefly. Once seated inside, Naruto looked over his current company, finding himself intrigued as to their team's composition and purpose. Shikamaru and Choji paid him little at. Well, Choji did anyway. The former was trying to act like he wasn't observing him by hiding his calculating eyes behind an air of indifference and lethargy, which likely wasn't totally fake. Shikamaru was a relatively tall, lanky boy with dark hair pulled into a spiky ponytail at the back of his head. He wore an open gray jacket over a chain shirt. Underneath, Naruto thought the boy had interesting powers. Dealing with shadows that at their base level restricted movement, but when wielded by experienced hands much more, the Nara had a lot of room to grow into. Choji was a kind, Chubby boy with spiky brown hair held in a weird headband that allowed tufts of it to fall through though the top while the rest was covered like a hat. Swirl marks on his cheeks, not too dissimilar to the swirls on his shoulders, and wore a loose green jacket. Choji himself had interesting powers, the ability to increase his and therefore power either in specific areas or over his whole body was perhaps much more one note in terms of use and strategy than his own powers or even his Nara Fr were, but still a powerful ability. Lastly, Naruto turned his attention to Ino, who was just sitting down having been walking behind her two teammates, apparently none too pleased to be in their company. SWA is a pretty blonde, much like himself, with green eyes. She wore a purple top and matching skirt with bandages wrapped around her stomach, arms and legs. Her ability W. Interesting too, but better suited to psychological warfare and espionage than to direct battle. She was someone within his class he quite liked. She was fun and easy to handle, so quick-witted. She was very emotionally intelligent, a different type of smart to Shika and even Naruto himself to an extent. She understood people and wasn't afraid to. That to her advantage. She's someone I could get along with, good cop bad cop style. I'm the smart, strong and handsome one who solves all the mysteries, and she cold, well maybe I don't need her to have fun, I'm enough on my own. Point is she can make the rest of this day somewhat interesting. Considering your dismal face, Shika, I take it your team passed? Naruto asked while resting his head on his hand which was leaning on the windowsill. The addressed boy turned fully to him and let out a resigned sigh before answering. We did. Though I wish he didn't have us do that ridiculous obstacle course, the Dark H. Boy grumbled. Choji picked up from his teammate. Asuma-sensei is nice though. He offered to pay for this meal and said he would meet us here after briefing the Hokage on the team. Boy spoke around a mouthful of beef. Oh, so you guys had to do an obstacle course, huh? That's interesting. It's quite different from the trial we went through. Naruto said to the table, though he continued in thoughts. It seems each sensei had creative control over their own tests. They could test their potential team for any number of abilities and hidden potential just by tweak their criteria. Kakashi wanted teamwork and so focused on that. This Asuma guy seemingly wanted to test mobility and quick thinking. It was a simple concept. Each sensei gets to test for aspects they most want in their teams. It means if you pass the test, the chemistry with your team and sensei is likely at least passable for mission work. Sometimes the most effective strategy is the simplest. There's no need for grand schemes all the time. Naruto already knew that Kakashi influenced the test they had faced, but it was interesting nonetheless to see how the other sensei approached it differently. For the first time since he arrived, Ino spoke up, breaking him from his thoughts. Different. Well, whatever, I just can't wait to go on some missions. Maybe we'll get to save handsome prince, with dark hair and nice eyes. He'll fall madly in love with my beauty and, though she had started off talking to Naruto, she quickly lost interest and fell. Her love story. Naruto only laughed at the girl, which drew her ire. What? She spat. Can't a girl dream without being laughed at? She cast a glare at Shikamaru, who although didn't laugh as brazenly as Naruto had, did let out a quiet troublesome. It's not that, Ino. I don't think we're going to be doing anything like that for a while. The Nara supplied to distract Ino from his use of that word again. Though what he did catch Naruto's attention. Oh, now that is an interesting idea, my lazy friend. Why do you think that? Naruto gave a smirk but only leaned further back into his hand and closed his eyes. Had he no the one to ask the question, you would assume he was as uninterested as the Nara. Giving a sigh at having to talk so much and to someone as troublesome as Naruto, Shikamaru continued, it's just not logical. Sure, we're now officially genin and have a registered team, but we haven't had any time to train. It would be too risky to send naive and untested shinobi on missions that the village relies on for money. Firstly, the village's reputation if they fail, and secondly, it risks future assets to the village. Losing a shinobi is a big hit, not only for profit but strong or upcoming shinobi serve as deterrent of war. If Asuma-sensei or one of us were to get seriously hurt or killed because we weren't up to scratch, the village has a lot to lose both presently and in our potential future contributions. Finally finishing his speech, Shikamaru found himself leaning forward facing Naruto. His two teammates had been stunned into brief silence, having never considered the implications of missions and their outcomes too deeply. But while he registered their looks and voices now whispering behind him, he was focused on the boy sitting casual opposite him. Naruto was someone he couldn't figure out. The boy acted so stupid, but there were flashes. Flashes of something far more serious and far more sinister behind those eyes of his. Shikamaru wasn't totally convinced that Uzumaki Naruto was a good person. It felt like an act, but to what end? He watched and waited for the reaction of the boy opposite him. He was sure to get a quick look at least at what lay beyond what Naruto allowed others to see. Naruto sat forward slowly and remained still for a second, but it felt like an hour to him. The tension was getting palpable. His hands beginning to sweat as he rubbed and fumbled with them. Then, "Aw man. You're totally right." Naruto shot up abruptly, looking panicked, eyes wide and hand running through his hair. "I can't believe I thought we would finally something cool," he complained. He let out a sigh, looking for all the world like someone told him his pet just died. "Well, I'll see you guys some other time," he said, leaving a rain cloud over his head and dragging his heels out the door. After a small disbelieving silence, Ino spoke once more. Sigh, what an idiot. I can't believe that guy is so strong. He's so immature, honestly. I thought he was going to say something interesting, Ino grumbled behind the Nara. She pouted her lips and kicked her feet together. Well, Naruto has always been a bit unpredictable, the ever-kind Choji spoke, while once more reaching for some beef. Shikamaru, though, couldn't help but feel nervous. He had also thought Naruto was actually going to answer his speech with a serious response. He had been pulled in by H language and presence, and was fully expecting anything but what Naruto had actually said. That had to be intentional. Was Naruto messing with him? Did he just go through that to annoy him? Or was he actually looking to gain something? And if he left, did he gain whatever it was he was looking for? Resting back against the chair, the intelligent Nara watched Naruto wander away from the window. The blonde boy was still walking like someone shot him, bawling his eyes out and annoying the people nearby who loo. Frustrated as he felt. With that, a ringing noise brought his attention behind him and to the door where Asuma was entering with a smile. Man, this day cannot get any more troublesome, he with a mental sigh. Naruto, however, was having a blast, walking up to people and pretending to cry on their clothes and even blowing his nose on a man's sleeve. Having made enough of a stood up properly, gave the passing people a wink and smile before disappearing, leaving only his joyous laughter behind. After all, he had a big day tomorrow. Well, Shika sure is a smart kid, a little boring, but we can't all be perfect. Naruto considered the words the Nara had said. He had been sure there was more to come from Sensei and had come to a similar conclusion to his shadowy friend. It was unlikely that such green behind the ears shinobi would be given anything of relevance to do. They would contribute in other far less exciting ways. He liked the Nara though, smart, cautious and perceptive. A little too easy to deceive, but he would only get better with experience. Arriving inside his apartment after successfully wasting a little bit of the day, he sat by his desk and waited for the day to end. Sarutobi Hiruzen was a fantastic shinobi and sensei. He had trained 3 of the foremost shinobi to come out of Konoha since the reign of Senju Tobirama, his own master. And right now he was impressed. Naruto were in the presence of the Hokage. At least try to pretend like you give a shit. That had been one of his top jonin, a man feared and renowned throughout the nations as the copy ninja Kakashi, a title befitting the mon's illustrious career. Right now, however, the man looked a step from death's door, ready to keel over and die the moment he was given the chance. It was truly an incredibly impressive feat for a squad of newly graduated genin to kill such a powerful jonin, and Naruto seemed to be about to achieve that by way of annoyance. The boy had been a handful for Kakashi these past few months, though Hiruzen had expected as much. Naruto was a strong boy, with a massive ego and no paw or self-control. Mixing that with the laborious D-rank missions he was being forced to partake in, plus the monotonous teamwork-centered training that done little other challenge his temper at the slow progress, and Hiruzen was actually surprised he hadn't genuinely tried his hand at murdering his sensei. Perhaps it's past time we throw him a bone. They are well beyond capable of performing AC rank, and as I told each team's sensei, I want these genin teams to perform exams in 4 months' time. If they aren't given true mission experience, it will only hold them back. Having made up his mind, the Hokage cleared his throat to begin address. The team before him. Kakashi, how would you rate your team in overall efficiency during mission work? Hiruzen looked to the young man. Kakashi raised his head from staring holes into Naruto as he was addressed and took a step forwards. Hokage-sama, while they are still inexperienced, Team 7 likely posse. The most talent and potential within the genin crop, Kakashi began his report. They perform missions with diligence and care, well the majority of them do anyway, he added. Under his breath, and their skills and team coordination are above expected levels as well. With his piece said, Kakashi took his place by his charge's side again in a white leader's decision. Hiruzen knew all of this anyway but asked to ascertain his Jonin's thoughts on his current internal debate. With Kakashi's vote of confidence though, the old legend made up mind. Very well then. Team 7, I am proud to administer you your first C-rank assignment. Please Iruka-kun send Tazuna in for me. Now that announcement gathered the group's attention. Like Kakashi had said, this group held massive potential, far too much to be wasted cleaning houses and catching runaway cats for too much longer. Hiruzen had long since accepted that missions came with danger. As a shinobi, it was something they each came to terms with personally. Sending newly graduated genin, and more importantly children, to their possible deaths was never an easy choice to make. But babying them for too long, holding them the village to protect them from the world would only stunt their growth, clip their wings if you will. He needed to let the young birds fly free, to truly grow from real and life-threatening situations. Hiruzen knew it was time to test their mettle. Kakashi stood silent. He knew what his Hokage meant by asking him what he thought of this team, and yet when he heard those words, he couldn't help but regret his ans. Not due to his team's lack of power or the fact they were ill-equipped to handle such a mission, as in truth he could do AC rank single-handedly with his eyes closed and tied behind his back, but because he had already grown far more attached to his cute little genin team than he had expected. Sure, Sasuke was a bit of a punk, a boy with some serious mental health issues and in need of major therapy, but at the same time, he had flashes of an enthusiastic, competitive boy who had some serious potential. Sakura was a little rough around the edges, but she was a sweet girl who had a brilliant mind, one that could even rival Inara in her preferred fields. And Naruto, well, Kakashi was pretty sure Naruto thought well enough of himself without him singing his praises too much, even if only in his thoughts. Together they made one hell of a team, and he was sure they would achieve much in their long lives still yet to come. But that was the problem, wasn't it? What if those lives weren't destined to be as long as he hoped? What if those potential achievements would never come to be? And all because they went on a mission too early, a mission from the village just a month too soon, and it could all come tumbling down for them. The silver-haired Jonin watched Iruka lead an older-looking man into the room and despite his lingering reservations decided to inspect his new client. His clothes, which consisted of a dark sleeveless top and matching shorts, were ragged and clearly well worn, whether from manual work or poverty Kakashi couldn't yet tell. He wore a straw-over thinning gray hair that matched his full beard, glasses covered his dark eyes, and he sported a tan complexion, likely from living in warm sunny weather for his life. The man was aged, probably in his early 60s, or at the youngest late 50s, but he clearly took care of himself, well other than the bottle of liquor that seemed worn through years of heavy use. Kakashi watched as the man's eyes, bleary from alcohol, scanned him for all but a second before moving on to the genin at his side. His eyes seemed to fill with more annoyance as he moved from one genin to the next, when he ended on Naruto, who was standing with his hands in his pockets, eyes closed and head leaned back so his face pointed straight at the ceiling. He seemed to finally lose control of his mouth. Oi Hokage, I thought you promised me a team of super ninja, not these stupid little brats. The yellow one can't even look in the right direction, how's he going to protect? Huh. The man slurred his words slightly, further proving Kakashi's thoughts that the bottle of liquor was worn from many years of overuse. Though Kakashi feared the reaction his blonde-haired charge, whom had just been insulted, the boy offered no outward reaction to the words, only continuing to face the selling with closed eyes. In place of the expected retort from Naruto, the Hokage spoke again. Well, Tazuna-san, if you are unhappy with the provided team, we can swap them for another. Although in all honesty this team of genin along with their Jonin sensei are extremely talented and you're unlikely to receive anyone superior, Hiruzen informed him. If you want a team of more experienced shinobi you would need to pay for a Hig mission level, as C-rank missions like this, with little to no expected combat with bandits or issues, are run by these team formats. Kakashi noticed the man shrink in on himself as the Hokage broke him down and noticed the uncertain and weary glances he made between him and his team. But he perked up when he noticed the fear and panic cross the man's face when the issue of mission rankings, pay and combat were mentioned. In all his years as a shinobi, Kaka met many chancers who lied to the village in order to reduce the cost of a mission. They normally died along with the team sent with them as they faced troubles beyond skills. And this man reeked of someone with a big secret to hide. He looked to his leader, to make sure he had caught on, and only met with the man's knowing and exacerbated eyes for a second before they both turned their attention the man before them. Well, I suppose this team will do for me then, but I expect these brats to pull their own weight at least. Tazuna finished lamely, trying and failing, at least to Kakashi's experienced senses, to appear calm and offering a begrudging acceptance, as if he was doing them a favor by allowing them to accompany him. The Hokage favored the man with a polite and aged smile before speaking. Fantastic. Then Kakashi, Tazuna-san is now in your care, and Team 7 good luck on your first mission. Wait first, was all Tazuna managed to say before he was lead out of the room by Iruka. Alright team. Meet me at the south gate in 15 minutes, prepare as you were instructed at the academy. Remember we want to carry light while still being fully prepared equipped. I'll meet you there. The team soon left to prepare for the unexpected mission. Kakashi thought they seemed confident, a little nervous but not scared, which was good. Naruto left without Chan. From how he'd stood in the room, seeming completely unbothered. Now though, with the company of only the Hokage and the hidden Anbu, he could get to the important at hand. Hokage-sama, if you don't mind my asking, why are we allowing this mon's charade to continue? It's obvious this mission is not as it seems. Kakashi spoke to his leader. Kakashi my boy, what does the Leaf Village believe in above all else within its shinobi core? What have I tried to instill into every youngster rising through our arcade? Even above mission parameters and guides. Hiruzen questioned. The will of fire, sir, was the immediate response. Exactly. The belief that we as a people are stronger together, that it is not the bricks or paths or even the trees that make up the Leaf Village but its people, or the vil. Hidden in the leaves, not this place where we happen to have built upon. The belief that the people of this village will always have your back, and although not everyone subscribes to this idea, I believe in it. But it extends beyond just our people, it applies to anyone who seeks our aid. To be honest with you Kakashi, we know what is happy in the wave right now. Hiruzen revealed. There is a man there who goes by Gojo. He has taken over the country by essentially forcing a monopoly over their business and industry. He has taken the whole country captive in order to plunder it to its last piece of worth. You and your team are going along with Tazuna, but there are other, more secretive shinobi going to deal with Gojo. So, my team is a diversion. To be seen as Tazuna's protectors by this Gojo and to draw his attention and allow the others to sneak in. Kakashi finished. Yes, essentially. You will complete your mission and they will complete theirs, but they are not an aspect of the Leaf we want to be associated with, as you well know my beau. Your team is more than a simple distraction. You are putting our best foot forwards, selflessly saving a man and his country for no gain whatsoever despite their lies, show. Are up-and-coming stars and becoming heroes. Quite the fairy tale story for a first big mission, wouldn't you say? Yet you speak of helping others based in the belief of the will of fire. From our own goodness and not for any gain. Is that not hypocritical, sir? Despite saying this, Kaka's meant no disrespect. He would lay down his life within a heartbeat for the man in front of him, and it would only partly be because of his position as Hokage. No, Kakashi W. Die for Hiruzen, not necessarily the position he held. But he truly wanted to understand the man's views. Hiruzen gave a chuckle before responding, yes, I suppose it is. But it all comes down to one thing. The people of this village are all my family, and I have to take into account their well-being as well. It is perhaps why there have been so many wars in this world of ours. Love for one's family inherently means placing their value and worth above so else's, and the actions you take to protect them will undoubtedly hurt someone else's loved one and breed hate between you. Minato was beloved in this village for his the Third Great War, and yet those same deeds made him a monster whose death was celebrated in villages like the Stone. It is something you must think about, Kakashi. Is Ito kill in order to protect your loved one despite knowing you are taking away another's? When you become Hokage, will you make the same choices as I? Or will you be than me and value everyone's life equally regardless of the potential harm it brings here? Kakashi stood silent for a moment before taking in his leader's expression. It was one of infinite compassion and yet one with equally infinite resolve. Resolve to do as was necessary in the protection of his home and people. Wait. When I become Hokage? He spoke back. Hiruzen only smiled at him before he was waved away and told he was running late to meet his team. Konoha South Gate. Naruto sat by the south gate, his back leaned against one of the giant doors that facilitated entrance and exit to the village. Next to him Sakura and Sasuke stood, both of were double and triple checking their bags, clearly anxious about the coming mission, and their sensei's tardiness was only compiling on top of it. For what was not the first time Naruto thought there was actually some deeper reason behind Kakashi's constant lateness. Maybe he wanted to force them to consider what were about to partake in as they sat around waiting for him. Maybe one of them would get cold feet and chicken out because he gave them time to think, rather than just into it before any deep thoughts on it could occur. Well, Naruto doubted that. Sasuke certainly wouldn't chicken out. It would go against his very purpose. And Naruto thought Sakura was beyond the stage where she would, well, she may be scared and want to do it, but he had faith that she wanted to improve herself more and that it would be that desire that won out in the end. Looking over to the check-in booth on the other side of the road, Naruto spotted their charge for the foreseeable future speaking with the gate guards. The man was looking calmer now than how he felt within the Hokage Tower. He held himself with some bravado and confidence as he chatted away to the guards. Naruto was feeling pretty good. This mission, it was true that Team 7 was still a new and untested team, especially within these circumstances of missions beyond the reaches of Konoha, but he thought it time they started really pushing themselves. He had been feeling somewhat stagnant for years now. Most of his power came by way of learning and mastering both the 6 and limitless bloodlines he was blessed with. The problem being the insane complexity in both understanding the techniques and the complex chakra manipulation required to use them. His most recent progress was ability to use the reversed technique called Red, that he used against Kakashi. It involved reversing the flow of chakra and in turn creating the opposite effect of his technique Blue. But using reversed chakra techniques was no easy feat, and his application of it was so far limited to utilizing Red, and even then, the output and effect of the ability severely nerfed from what it had the potential to do. He needed to continue to grow. He was beginning to grow frustrated at his inability to master the reverse application of chakra in a sizable way. It was a new and novel experience for him, and he decided he didn't like it one bit. Looking away from Tazuna just before the man turned his head, perhaps feeling the unsettling feeling many had when he looked at them, Naruto smiled slightly as he faced never-ending expanse of the world beyond his home village. Whatever happened in this mission, Naruto swore he would make the most of it. It was high time he really Kisanto gear and began moving forwards in exploring his potential, and this mission would be the perfect first step. With Kakashi having finally arrived, Team 7 was set to head off on their first journey beyond the Leaf Village walls. They were to embark on a rank mission to escort Taz, bridge builder from Nami no Kuni, the land of waves, back to his home, protecting him from any run-of-the-mill bandits he may encounter along his path, and supporting until the completion of his bridge construction. At least that was the mission as viewed from the surface, but when one looked underneath, there was more brewing than a simple escort mission. After Kakashi's arrival, the somewhat confident and relaxed mood that had previously settled over both the team and their charge evaporated. Tempers and nerves were now running high for most of the group, though for different reasons. Naruto first looked to his fellow genin team and classmates. They appeared nervous, if the constant twitching of their hands and repositioning of their feet was anything to Sakura was more obvious, the fear and apprehension plain to see on her face as well as in her body language. She had improved as much as one can in a few months of training. Nothing new with her individual skills, but more polished movement and other basics along with the team exercises drilled into them. She had done well to apply properly to physical training, likely for the first time in her life, as her preferred field always was the theoretical side of shinobi life, though she still complained about its cons. Sasuke was much better at hiding his nerves, the only giveaways being his clenched teeth, jumpy eyes that moved from one thing to the next like he was already scanning surroundings for enemies, and his generally more tense and rigid posture than was usual for him. But what both of them had in common, though more evident and stronger in Sasuke, was the fire burning in their eyes, the determination and excitement to go on a mission this magnitude and further themselves. Naruto would consider that more than enough for them to be qualified for this mission, should it go as planned. Tazuna, though showing the same signs of nervousness as his teammates, was doing so for much different reasons Naruto was still working out, but thought he general gist of. Basically, he's full of shit, Naruto thought to himself. From the worry about our team's strength when he first met and saw us, to even requesting a new squad with strong shinobi, he's worried about more than generic run-of-the-mill bandits he may not even encounter. No, there's something or someone specific he has in mind that might be targeting him. Continuing to consider this, Naruto decided that there was nothing that needed to be done. He could allow this to play out as the Hokage and his sensei had planned, though he was unsure exactly as to what that plan would entail. Speaking of his sensei, the man had arrived a few minutes ago and was in the process of signing them out of the village. Appearing to have finished with that, he began his way back over to them. Kakashi gave nothing away. He walked with the exact same ease as always, his face already mostly covered gave even less away, as his only was shut in a smile as he approached. Okay, is everyone ready to go? Remember, once we set off, we won't be back until this mission is complete, so make sure you're ready. Kakashi said after gathering the group together. With everyone confirming their preparedness and Tazuna antsy to get a move on, the group departed the leaf, moving under the large gates and walls of the village and the endless sea of trees surrounding them. Getting into a standard formation with Naruto standing in front, Sakura on the left side, Sasuke on the right side and Kakashi back, they surrounded Tazuna, leaving him to walk in the middle of their formation, and began walking along the path leading away from their home at a sedate pace. Having civilian within the group meant that they would have to travel at civilian speeds, which meant days filled with nothing but walking awaited them. After a few hours of walking in uncomfortable silence, at least it was uncomfortable for her, Sakura spoke up to ask their client a question. Excuse me, Mr. Tazuna. The MG grunted, barely turned his head to her and paused his flask at his lips for merely a second before taking his swig as intended. What? He asked with blatant annoyance at the girl laced within his drunk and slurred voice. Well, I was just wondering what the land of waves is like. I read that it's a large trading hub, especially with shipping goods. If you've hired foreign shinobi, that must you don't have your own right? Sakura asked after a brief moment of hesitation from his clear frustration at being spoken to. Tazuna almost seemed to flinch briefly as she mentioned their shipping industry, which Naruto noticed and filed away. Kakashi appeared to be ignoring them off in his own world reading a book, but Naruto assumed he was listening intently as well. Well, you sure know your stuff, girly, haha. The bridge builder stuttered. Wave was Is a beautiful place just off the coast of Hinokuni, the land of fire. It's far too to have its own shinobi village, and the people there aren't so trusting of you shinobi folks anyway, he answered. Sakura looked shocked by that revelation. Why wouldn't they trust us? She asked back. The bridge builder finally stopped drinking and set his flask away into his bag to answer the girl. Well, for a small civilian town who deals in trade, having you shinobi mull around throwing those dangerous abilities about without care for collateral makes people nervous. The abilities shinobi have may seem to be the norm for you, who's grow cozy in a big shinobi village like Konoha, but they are well beyond supernatural to your average working folk in wave. Powers like that are seen as unnatural just because they're so rare out with shinobi settlements. The answer from Tazuna was an interesting one, though it seemed to upset Sakura more than satiate her curiosity. Naruto though understood, his abilities would already be considered incredibly strong in any of the shinobi villages, but in a small out-of-the-way village like Tazuna's home, they would be enough for him to rule them as some kin deity. To live your life knowing there were people with powers beyond your wildest imagination out there, and that one day they might set their sights on you would make nervous. Tazuna continued his speech to Sakura explaining how the wave citizens lived their lives, fending for their own and how being reliant on the sea and shipping had left them somewhat cut off from the mainland both literally and in terms of news and communication. But as he spoke, Naruto was only now half paying attention to the man's words. Instead his focus was on a seemingly nondescript puddle along their path. And that's partly why I'm building this bridge. The people of Wave have been too cut off from society. We need this connection to the mainland so we aren't so dependent. Shipping trade. Tazuna was getting worked up as he spoke, but as he finished he seemed to shut in on himself, briefly glancing to the jonin among them as if to make sure man hadn't heard what he just said. Though instead of getting the confirmation he was after, he was met with the sight of the man charged with his protection being shred into two pieces as two people appeared at either side of him with a spiked chain connecting their hands. Time stood still for a brief moment as blood flew everywhere and the jonin's separated corpse fell to the ground with a wet thump. Tazuna fell into shock, unable to look away from the mangled body of the strongest among them. The two shinobi, who were covered in long black coats and masks, almost reminiscent of breathing apparatus used underwater, looked to their true target now that the big threat to their mission was dead. Seeing Tazuna in his state of shock, they took the opportunity granted to them and shot forwards, once again aiming to bisect him as they done with the weak gray-haired man.
Tazuna, seeing he was now the target they had in their sights, attempted to scramble backwards and run away, only for him to trip over his own feet due to his panic and fall helplessly on his ass. Time seemed to slow for him as he watched his soon-to-be murderers approach him, seeing his reflection looking back at him from their spiked chain. Looked upon the pitiful state he was reduced to. All he could think about in that moment before death was his family he would leave behind. Tsunami, Inari, Kaiza, I'm sorry. With that last thought, Tazuna expected his death to come and with closed eyes awaited the pain he assumed would soon overtake him. Never did. When he managed to build up the courage, he opened his eyes and was met with the sight of the dark-haired genin standing protectively before him. He could clearly what was beyond the boy in front of him due to a large cloud of dust that had been kicked up with Naruto 10 seconds ago. Naruto continued to discreetly observe the puddle as they walked, the six eyes allowing him to clearly see the genjutsu at play, as well as the two shinobi who were using hide. Looking over his shoulder under the guise of listening more closely to what the bridge builder was saying, he looked to his sensei knowing the man would have spot. Well, Kakashi only looked over the top of his book, smiled, and using the hand stuffed in his pocket made the gesture to hold back, knowing that the six eyes Naruto posses would allow him to see the gesture despite the fabric blocking it from everyone else's view. With instructions from his sensei, Naruto allowed the events to play out without interfering. Even when he watched Kakashi be torn to shreds, he didn't panic, instead he When the two mysterious shinobi attackers looked for their next target and settled on Tazuna, he didn't act. When he watched them begin to charge forwards from their pass near his sensei's corpse, and ready their weapon to kill his charge who had fallen over trying to escape, he remained still. Only when he seen Sasuke flash in front of Tazan, kunai at the ready to fend off the attackers, did Naruto act. Charging forwards faster than even any of the surrounding shinobi could see, he delivered an axe kick to the center of the chain connecting the two adversaries, activating neutral application of limitless around his leg while doing so. The force of the kick pinned the chain into the ground and kicked up a large cloud of dust as his foot met the ground. The two attackers' momentum was halted abruptly as their arms connected by the chain were roughly pulled back. Both men shouted in pain as their shoulders were dislocated from their sockets by the force of their own momentum being stopped. Naruto then appeared in between the two men, arms outstretched, and hands pointed like two guns. Chakra technique reversal. Red, twin guns, was all that the attackers heard before they were met with an oppressing force slamming into them. The force pushed apart, snapping the chain connecting them and sending them flying out either side of the cloud of dust. Their flight was only halted when their backs hit into the trees which surrounded the path on both sides with bone-crushing force. The use of red also cleared the area of dust, allowing the onlookers to see Naruto standing in front of a gaping hole in the path, his hands now down by his side and his brow creased in annoyance. TCH. Still can't get a proper hold on that damn technique. The amount of chakra I used there was easily equal to an A-rank jutsu, but simply overloading it with more CH doesn't actually improve the power at all. As long as I can't get a proper handle of chakra reversal, the output will either be limited like it was now, or the technique cool outright fail to initiate. When the onlookers turned their heads, they could see both attackers sitting slumped at the base of two trees on opposite sides of the path from one another. They looked barely holding onto consciousness and unable to move, and if the indents into the trees were any measure of how hard they hit them, it was understandable why they were looking back to Naruto. They found him staring down at the body of their sensei. Upon the reminder of his tragic and gruesome fate, Sakura puked her guts out on the side path, her body crumbling as she was forced onto her knees, unable to even care she was sitting in her own sick, her body racked with trembles, and she cried, the release build up of all the emotions she had experienced. She had turned when she heard something behind her and so was spared the sight of Kakashi being bisected, but the sight of his body lying in half on the ground was just sickening. Only to then be unable to do anything as her sensei's murderers charged at the man she was to protect. She watched as Sasuke took action straight away and herself for her weakness being shown in front of him. She felt, at first, some relief that Naruto must have clearly been in a similar position to her, as she hadn't seen him might, only to have that thrown back in her face when it was revealed he had dealt with the situation with no difficulty. Not only was he unaffected by the fear of being attacked, appeared unaffected by the death of their sensei. She looked up at Naruto, finally able to tear her eyes away from the bisected body, only to see him looking up into the trees. She followed his line of sight but didn't see anything, until a blur shot through the trees from where they were looking. Sakura felt all hope leave her. Of course there were more shinobi surrounding them, they were likely stronger and were going to kill them now that Naruto had defeated the two. But that was not what happened. The figure that landed before Naruto with a hand placed on the boy's shoulder and an all too familiar eye smile on his face was her D-sensei. She blinked a few times, unsure if this was an illusion being created from the tears in her eyes or the thumping of her head. But he remained there, his eye smile now Deresasuke. She even faintly heard words come out of his mouth, not that she could understand them over the pounding of her heart and all the blood rushing through her ear. Lastly, his smile was directed to her, though it faltered and became an apologetic and sad look as the man took in her state. Sakura looked from her very much alive sensei, one laying only feet from her on the ground, only instead of the horrific sight she knew was there, she was only able to see a log shredded into two pieces. Kakashi brushed past Naruto as the boy looked over his shoulder and also took in the state of his female teammate. He arrived in front of her and knelt down on one knee, looked up into his eyes, and the tears started again, though this time they were joyful ones. She screamed and cried as she lurched forwards, wrapping her arms around him. Desperate hug. SS's senator. She muttered out in between sobs and sniffles. Kakashi only hugged her tighter. I'm sorry, Sakura. I know that must have been horrible to witness, but I promise I did not take such drastic action for no reason. I needed to confirm something of vital importance for this mission. Kakashi spoke with a gentle and comforting voice. Standing up and bringing Sakura to her feet, he allowed her to calm herself, and only when nodded her head to him did he leave her to stand on her own. Naruto kept his eyes on Sakura as Kakashi took purposeful strides towards Tazuna. He hadn't expected such a strong reaction from her, but he understood. It's one thing to you have prepared yourself for whatever may happen on a mission, but to actually encounter it, not only on their first mission but also on one where these types of situations should never occur, is a totally separate matter. To have this suddenly thrust onto her and to be confronted by the idea that she is not safe on missions through the death of someone she considers to be an immovable protector, one who has bested the best they had to offer time and time again, would be overwhelming. But as Kakashi had told her, he had not made that decision and acted out that play for no reason. It was to the benefit of the mission that their attackers believed Kakashi dead. After all, once who they consider to be the main threat is out of the picture, their next target is likely to be the true main objective of their attack. Kakashi was simply a way of observing who they were truly after because of his perceived power and strength as the Jonin. That's why I held off from moving after Kakashi was killed. If I had acted too quickly, they wouldn't have shown us their objective and Kakashi's plan would have been was. Plus allowing Sasuke to come to terms with the dangers and threats on a mission and chose to act in the defense of our employer for himself was important. It would do him good to come to his rescue and spare him the hardship of making that decision. It would only hold him back, though seeing the look on his face might have been worth it. Thought to himself. Turning his attention to the raven-haired boy, Naruto could practically see the adrenaline pumping through him. Sasuke had done well to react and put himself in a position to defend their client, even after witnessing the death of his sensei, and Kakashi had told him as much when he revealed himself as alive. Naruto could still see the tension in shoulders. Just because he acted doesn't mean he wasn't scared or nervous, but being able to act in spite of those fears was a massive and essential step for him to take. The two boys made eye contact briefly and gave each other a small nod, both glad for the other's safety, though Sasuke did allow his eyes to linger on the damaged path Naruto had moved on to looking at their sensei and client. Kakashi approached Tazuna and allowed the fury boiling within to show. Of course, he knew this mission was more than his team originally bargained for. He even already KTHE man was lying to them. But that didn't change the fact his team, one barely out of the academy, had just had the misfortune of combating what Kakashi knew were a Chunin level shinobi. After seeing the effect it had had on Sakura, Kakashi was seriously angry, but was he actually angry at Tazuna? It was his plan that had scared Samuch, and it was his negligence that had his team, who hadn't yet even learned tree climbing with chakra application, out on this mission. Deciding that he would have to up for that, he knew it was time his team moved on from basic team drill training and began training in earnest. After all, he had already decided that they were worthy long Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Kakashi created two clones who moved over to each of the opposing shinobi who were now beginning to pull themselves up. The clones vanish quickly into the woods to extract some information. Stopping before Tazuna, who was still sprawled out on his ass, Kakashi crouched before him. So Mr. Tazuna, I think you've got a lot to tell me. So, it's best you get started and explain why there are Chunin level shinobi targeting you despite only applying for AC rank mission. Looking into the eyes of the shinobi before him, Tazuna decided it would be best for his health and well-being to be honest with him, and so after taking a moment to steady himself, he stood from his seat on the ground and prepared to divulge everything. Okay, I understand. You are right, I wasn't honest with you. The truth is, the wave needs this bridge for more than just reconnecting to the mainland. A year or so people of my village were approached by a wealthy businessman named Gojo. He revealed an interest in purchasing some land and setting up business in Wave, using the shipping industry available there to grow his trade. The rest of Team 7 now gathered around Tazuna as well, and at the name Gojo, Sakura perked up. Gojo? You mean Gojo of Gojo Company? Sakura exclaimed. That's right, Tazuna confirmed. Gojo is one of the richest men in the world, possibly the richest outside of the daimyo, feudal lords, and royal families. At first many of people thought this would be a good idea and readily sold him property. They expected that there would be a boon in traffic through the island from ship crew if trade and shipping were to increase. However, Gojo used this small foothold he had garnered to monopolize the land of waves. Tazuna paused, then with a slight tremble in his hand took a drink from his flask. He continued on with his story after composing himself and taking brief comfort in the ALC. He always carried. He set about isolating the country, firstly by taking control of the seas surrounding Wave. He used the pretense of trade and his shipping company to hide the fact that the waters were now crawling with his ships, no one could enter or exit without his knowledge and permission, and with no access to the sea our isolation only grew. In contrast, the sea, Gojo controlled Wave, there was no food unless Gojo provided it, at a cost of course, there was no fresh water, unless it was bought from Gojo company, there was medical treatment, unless it was being paid to Gojo. Our entire lives became reliant on him, and with that in his hands he could do as he pleased. Without any link to the world, no one knew what was happening in Wave, it was as if it was all taking place behind drawn curtains. Gojo went about setting up ports for trade using the island as to freely stop off and resupply. Usually, ports would charge companies for that, and the surrounding area would make revenue through shops and hotels for the ship's crew. Would need rest and provisions. However, with Gojo controlling Wave as he does, he could do it for free. But of course, trade isn't all Gojo deals in. What do you mean by that? Kakashi asked. Naruto assumed he already knew the answer to that but wanted Tazuna to explain it himself. Gojo is known for his wealth and his successful business Gojo company, but that's only the surface of everything that man deals in. He's a disgusting man who cares only own wealth and status. He has aspirations of becoming so influential that he gets invited into the daimyo's courts, where he would be practically untouchable. To achieve th goal, he has his hands dirtied in anything you can imagine: drugs, money laundering, human trafficking, prostitution and slavery. They are all but a means to an end for him. Something that will quicken his ascent in the world. Wave is a suitable base to run his dealings through, not only because of his control over the people but also its geographic advantage of being isolated. He can do as he pleases without fear of being outed for his crimes. The more Naruto listened, the more he was certain the Hokage already knew of the situation in the land of Waves, Gojo's corrupt dealings and the potential danger he poses. Was looking to expand his sphere of influence into Hai no Kuni, and that he and Kakashi had an overarching plan that went beyond Team 7's mission to simply escort and PR Tazuna, in helping them to establish a connection with the mainland while also defending or liberating them from this Gojo. We also establish a measure of gratitude and build trust. Likely that the first people they will seek out to trade or do business with in the future will be the home of their saviors. So, we're here to establish good rapport and forwa Leaf's interests through an alliance with the liberated land of Waves. But in order to successfully complete our mission, Gojo will need to be dealt with. A cancerous tumor him would only continue to come back and haunt you unless it was completely removed, and if he's posing a threat to Konoha and Hai no Kuni in the future, then getting our Gojo looks like we're helping the people of Wave to an outside spectator, but is also of benefit to Konoha. Not bad, old man, not bad. Just as Naruto finished that thought, the two clones of Kakashi returned from the woods, each of them dragging the men who had attacked them back towards the main GR, where they unceremoniously dropped them by the feet of Kakashi and Tazuna before poofing out of existence. Kakashi seemed to close his eye to ponder something briefly before he began speaking. Well then, allow me to introduce you to Gozu and Maizu, who together are called Demon Brothers. These guys are, or were, Chunin-level missing ninja from Karigakure no Sato, village hidden in the mist, who went rouge after their resistance made a failed assassination attempt on the Mizukage. That particular piece of information caught the group's attention. They were tasked by their leader to assassinate Tazuna during his return trip. It seems Gojo is getting antsy about the bridge's construction and wants to cut the progress ahead, and by head, I mean your head, Tazuna. Kakashi continued. It's not surprising that he would target Tazuna, but if he's so nervous about the bridge, why not just destroy it? Based on what Tazuna has told us, it's not like Wave could to start over if he did. Naruto asked. Kakashi looked to his student and pondered that question. After a moment of thought he answered, as I mentioned, these demon brothers were sent after Tazuna by Therthi took a suicide pill before I could find out their identity, but I did manage to find out that it's one of the Rouge members of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. The men. That famous group caused Sakura to pale a little. She had learned all about them in history class. If you were to try and compare them to a group within the Leaf Village, enough power, prestige and notoriety, she could only think to compare them to the legendary Sannin, the three students of Sarutobi Hiruzen, their third Hokage. They were the powerful subordinates of their respective kage, but both groups had produced less than stellar people. Kakashi continued, if Gozu and Maizu are under orders from one of 7, it's prudent to guess that they've split up for a reason, one forced to deal with the target, in this case Mr. Tazuna, and another to work on something in the land of Wa. During his absence, it could be that you're exactly right, Naruto, and that the bridge has been targeted, but I think it's unlikely. I believe Gojo wishes to crush all hope of a resistance. By killing Tazuna he makes it so Wave no longer has the will to continue building the bridge but also kills the only person with the construction skills to do it. Allowing the unfinished bridge to stand means there will always be that massive looming reminder for the people of Wave that the last time they resisted him they suffered. Kakashi finished off. Now came the moment of truth for Kakashi. He was a little put off about continuing, knowing now that a member of the 7 swordsmen could be awaiting them in Wave. He also knew that his team wouldn't be the only ones on this mission. The Hokage wished to free Wave, and so was sending an Anbu team to infiltrate while Kakashi and team distracted Gojo and pulled his attention. Without his team continuing, the Black Ops mission couldn't continue either, but forcing Genin to face a foe of this caliber should be fatal, a complete suicide mission with no hope of victory. But his team weren't ordinary Genin, were they? Naruto, Kakashi spoke, getting the boy's attention. You said you were willing to talk about your abilities, and I have no reason to doubt you on that, but we haven't got Ardo having that conversation yet. Whether I even give you the option to decide if you want to continue this mission will depend on this, so really consider it. Could you Suppo, in a fight with one of the 7, without putting your life at risk? With Tazuna having explained the current situation in the land of Waves to Team 7, they now had a choice to make, well, at least the illusion of choice. Naruto had to admit, Kakashi had played this out nicely. Technically, if they were following protocol, in a situation like their current circumstance, a team unfit or unqualified to handle mission parameters exceeding that of the original mission should turn back to Konoha or request backup. However, with the defeat of the now identified Demon Brothers, and the knowledge gained from their interrogation, that an even greater threat awaited them, it complicated things. A threat of this magnitude should make it a no-brainer that they should return to the village. After all, their client had grossly misrepresented the level of this mission. However, there was clearly more to this mission that he and his fellow were not aware of, and it was apparently hinging entirely on Naruto's capabilities. Kakashi doesn't know my limits. He has an idea only based on what he's seen from me in training and one brief encounter with enemy ninja. He's working with an unknown variable, one that has the potential to sway his decision both ways. He wants to continue in order to fulfill whatever task the Hokage has delegated to him, but he also won't endanger our lives if we cannot stack up to it. He likely hadn't expected to encounter a shinobi powerful enough that he couldn't handle them comfortably by his lonesome. Now that he knows there is someone of that caliber, he can't guarantee that he can protect us. It'll hurt Sasuke's pride that he's been overlooked here, but he's weak in Kamto, the enemy we will face, a more powerful than average fish, but still a baby. He can easily be eaten up by an adult fish of a lower caliber. That analogy was shit. Naruto, B. Point still stands. Looking to his sensei, Naruto made his decision, support you. I'd win.